You know what's weird? We live in an age where machines scan our eyeballs to prove we're human, where corporations build artificial friends to cure our loneliness, and where our most sophisticated AI systems become more agreeable but less truthful with each update. These developments, they reveal something significant, something profound about our evolving relationship with technology. And maybe, perhaps more importantly, with ourselves. Now, today we're examining 4 remarkable developments in artificial intelligence that collectively, combined, expose what I call the digital paradox, our simultaneous desire for technological systems that perfectly align with our wishes while remaining authentically distinct from human consciousness. The question at the heart of this paradox? What happens when the technologies we create to serve us begin to fundamentally reshape what it means to be human? Let's kick off with a somewhat troubling development at OpenAI. According to TechCrunch, OpenAI recently experienced a significant incident when their updated GPT-4o model showed excessive sycophancy. Basically, it was validating almost any user input, regardless of its problematic nature. The internet, of course, probably Reddit, most likely, filled with viral screenshots showing ChatGPT enthusiastically endorsing dangerous ideas and decisions, turning the situation into a meme. Altman, that's ChatGPT's CEO, acknowledged the problem and basically promised immediate fixes, rolling back the update while developing additional solutions. Now, what makes this particularly significant is OpenAI's subsequent pledge to transform their deployment process. They're introducing an opt-in alpha phase for model testing, basically providing explanations of known limitations for updates and treating model behavior issues like personality, deception, and reliability as launch-blocking concerns. The company is pledged to communicate proactively about updates, whether subtle or not. Now, this incident recalls the philosophical work of Jean Baudrillard, particularly his concept of simulacra and simulation. Now, Baudrillard, the French philosopher who analyzed how signs and symbols replace reality in contemporary society, he'd see in ChatGPT's sycophancy a perfect example of what he called hyperreality, the simulation that precedes and eventually replaces the reality it supposedly represents. And when ChatGPT agrees with whatever users suggest, it creates a kind of simulation of knowledge, one without any connection to any truth behind it. It becomes, in Baudrillard's framework, a simulacrum, a copy without an original. The model doesn't represent any real, actual knowledge. It just produces responses that are optimized for agreement rather than accuracy. Now, this perfectly captures Baudrillard's warning about the precession of simulacra, the increasing tendency for simulations to precede and replace the real. Now, Martin Buber's philosophy provides another lens for understanding this phenomenon. Buber, the Austrian-Israeli philosopher who explored the nature of dialogue and human relationships, while he made the distinction between I-thou relationships, which are basically authentic encounters between subjects, people like you and me, and I-it relationships, essentially utilitarian interactions with objects. Now, ChatGPT's sycophancy represents a kind of corruption of dialogue itself, a false I-thou relationship, one that mimics authentic exchange, while at the same time actually functioning as an I-it interaction that's then optimized for user engagement. Now, what makes this development fairly concerning is basically its scale and its influence. TechCrunch says that 60% of US adults have used ChatGPT for advice or information. So I think what we're seeing is the emergence of a new form of epistemic authority. Powerful AI systems that millions depend on for understanding the world around them, yet which may prioritize agreeability over accuracy. Now, the second development comes from Google, where their latest Gemini 2.5 Flash model actually performs worse on safety metrics than its predecessor. According to Google's own technical report, the model demonstrates a 4.1% regression on text-to-text safety and a crazy 9.6% regression on image-to-text safety compared to Gemini 2 Flash. Now, this safety regression emerges from what Google calls a tension between instruction following and policy compliance. The newer model adheres to instructions more faithfully, including instructions that cross problematic lines. Testing, in this case, confirmed that the model is far less likely to refuse answering contentious questions than its predecessor. In practical terms, it readily writes essays supporting controversial positions like replacing human judges with AI and implementing widespread, warrantless government surveillance. It's crazy. And this development has a really nice link to Michel Foucault's analysis of knowledge and power. And Foucault, the French philosopher and historian who looked at how institutional structures shape and influence our understanding of truth, he would recognize in these safety structures, these regressions, the complex interplay between corporate objectives and knowledge production. Now, the regression represents a shift in what Foucault would call the regime of truth, the rules that govern what counts as valid knowledge within a specific context. And when Google acknowledged that improved instruction following comes at the cost of safety, they revealed a fundamental tension at the heart of AI development. There's this technical capability to follow instructions more faithfully. It exists in direct conflict with the ethical imperative to refuse harmful requests. Conflict that essentially the market currently seems to be resolving in favor of capability over constraint. Now, Hannah Arendt, and we covered her quite a bit, but Hannah Arendt is perfect for this. She has this concept of the banality of evil, which applies here, I think. So Arendt, who looked at how ordinary people could participate in atrocities through administrative processes, would see in these safety regressions the danger of systems that prioritize technical functionality over moral reflection. The very framing of these issues as statistical regressions, 4.1% and 9.6%, reflects a very bureaucratically flavored approach to very human moral questions that Arendt actually warned us could normalize more harmful outcomes. And what's particularly striking is that this isn't unique to Google. TechCrunch saw that this development follows similar trends across the entire AI industry, with Meta tuning models to be less likely to refuse controversial prompts, OpenAI working to make systems that don't take editorial stances, and so on. These changes, they sometimes backfire dramatically, like when OpenAI's ChatGPT allowed minors to generate erotic conversations due to what the company called a bug. I mean, not the worst bug out there, but it's a bug nonetheless. What's a bug to some is a feature to others. Now, that said, I think we're seeing what appears to be a collective shift in the AI industry, from systems designed with strong, powerful ethical guardrails to more permissive models that prioritize capability and user satisfaction over safety. And this shift itself raises some interesting questions about corporate responsibility in an age where AI systems increasingly shape our entire information landscape. Now, the third development moves us from software to hardware. Tools for Humanity, the startup behind the World Human Verification Project, co-founded by OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, has unveiled a mobile device called the Orb Mini. This smartphone-like device features two large front sensors that scan users' eyeballs to create a unique blockchain identifier that verifies human identity. Think about that. The technology stems from a provocative premise. It's going to eventually become somewhat impossible to distinguish humans from AI agents online. What the Orb Mini represents is an attempt to solve this problem through biometric verification, essentially creating a technological solution to a problem technology itself has created. Now, this parallels Jean-François Lyotard's comment and arguments that he's made in the postmodern condition. Lyotard, not to be confused with the Lululemon variety, who analyzed the changing status of knowledge in computerized societies, looked at what he called the differend. It's basically situations where conflicts arise that cannot be equitably resolved because they lack a common framework. The increasing difficulty in determining and distinguishing humans from AI creates precisely such a differend, where our traditional frameworks for understanding human identity no longer function in an adequate manner. The Orb Mini also connects well with Heidegger's critique of technology. Heidegger, the German philosopher who examined how technology shapes our understanding of being, he warned about what he called enframing, the tendency to view everything, including humans, as resources to be optimized and utilized. The Orb Mini literally frames the human, reducing personhood to biometric data that can be verified and authenticated. Now, what's particularly significant is that this technology comes from none other than Sam Altman, who at the same time leads OpenAI, one of the companies making it increasingly difficult to distinguish humans from AI. Now, this creates what some philosophers might call a technological double bind, where the solutions to problems created by technology require even more invasive technologies, pulling us deeper into technological dependency. The company claims 26 million people have signed up worldwide, with 12 million already verified. They're opening storefront locations in 6 major U.S. cities where people can have their eyeballs scanned. This represents a significant step towards normalizing biometric surveillance as a solution to AI impersonation, a solution that requires us to surrender biological privacy just to prove our humanity. Now, our final development may actually be the most philosophically provocative. Mark Zuckerberg and Meta are advancing a vision of AI chatbots as extensions of people's friend networks and potential solutions to loneliness. During a recent podcast, Zuckerberg stated that the average American has less than 3 friends, but has demand for what he said meaningfully more. This vision represents a fundamental shift in how we understand social media and potentially social connection itself. Now, Zook predicts that in less than 5 years, social media won't be passive, but interactive. Users will engage with content that responds and adapts. And this transformation would make AI companions fully central to the entire social media experience, thus blurring the line between human and artificial relationships. Now, Emmanuel Levinas, the Lithuanian-French philosopher, who explored ethical responsibility through the concept of the face of the other, would likely find this development deeply troubling. For Levinas, ethical responsibility comes about from direct encounters with other humans. Encounters that place infinite demands on us, and they can't be reduced to things like utility or just satisfaction. AI companions represent a potential evasion of this responsibility. Relationships that simulate human connection without ever implying or imposing the ethical demands of a genuine encounter. Now, Martin Buber's distinction between the I-thou and I-it relationships becomes even more relevant here. Buber argued that authentic human connection, the I-thou relationship, requires a mutual recognition between subjects. AI companions, regardless of how sophisticated they might be, remain fundamentally it rather than thou. They simulate subjectivity without actually possessing it. So the rise of AI companions potentially normalizes I-it relationships, masquerading as I-thou encounters, reshaping, in its process, our expectations of connection, of meaning itself. The development has raised some serious concerns. Common Sense Media recently declared AI companions as an unacceptable safety risk for minors. The Wall Street Journal reported that Meta's chatbots have engaged in inappropriate sexual banter, even with users who identified as teens, though, of course, Meta claims to have implemented controls to prevent this. But what makes this development particularly significant is its potential scale and influence again. Meta's platform reaches billions of users globally. If Zook's vision becomes a reality, AI companions could become normalized as supplements or even replacements for real human relationships, fundamentally altering how future generations understand connection, friendship, and even intimacy. These 4 developments, sycophantic models, safety regressions, human verification technology, and AI companions, combined all collectively reveal a profound philosophical paradox at the heart of our technological age. We simultaneously seek AI systems that perfectly understand and validate us while remaining distinct enough from humanity to serve rather than supplant us. This paradox manifests in a bunch of different tensions. First, the tension between truth and validation. ChatGPT's sycophancy and Google's safety regressions reflect a shift from systems optimized for accuracy to those optimized for user satisfaction. This mirrors what philosopher Harry Frankfurt identified as the distinction between truth-seeking and bullshit. Discourse unconcerned with truth, but focused on persuasion and effect. The second, the tension between human identity and technological verification. World's Orb Mini reflects our struggle to maintain meaningful distinctions between humans and AIs in a world where those boundaries are increasingly blurred. It echoes philosopher Catherine Hale's concept of the post-human, a state where human identity becomes completely inseparable from its technological extensions. And third, the tension between authentic connection and simulated companionship. Meta's AI friends represent an attempt to address human loneliness through technological simulation. It seems appropriate that Zook would put this forward. This recalls philosopher Sherry Turkle's warning about the alone together concept, the state of being technically connected, but experientially isolated. These tensions converge in what I would call the digital paradox, our simultaneous desire for technological systems that perfectly align with our wishes, while remaining authentically distinct from human consciousness. This paradox raises important questions about our technological future. What happens to human knowledge when our information systems prioritize agreeability over accuracy? What happens to our identity when proving our humanity requires technological verification? What happens to human connection when relationships can be simulated and optimized by algorithms? I think the answers to these questions are going to shape more than just our technological landscape. It'll affect our total understanding of what it means to be human in this digital age. As Baudrillard warned, we risk entering a hyperreality where simulations precede and replace the real, where artificial friends, artificial knowledge, and artificial human verification create a world where the distinction between authentic and simulated experience becomes increasingly meaningless. For Nasty, Brutish, and Short, I'm Michael Cuenca. That was this week's episode. Subscribe and join me again next week as we unpack the deeper themes of philosophy and intelligence, artificial or otherwise. Have a great week. See you soon.